Hey, welcome back to edtech by Meera, and in today's tutorial we are going to discuss what are Python variables, or rather variables in Python, which we have done several times in different projects that I did with you, but I thought of doing this tutorial separately so that once you're clear about variables, you can understand your projects in future much better and you can do it more independently. So here we go. What's a variable in Python? So basically it's like we've done in short earlier, it's like a placeholder which can store your values, whatever values you assign, whatever data you assign. So the idea of variables is for you to store some values or data. And kind of it's actually created to store your values. And we will be doing with you, I'll be doing with you what is variable, how variables are created, how it is initialized, and what service does it do, what task does it do, and how different things, how it is used in functions, and what are the different types of variables, and so on and so forth. Yeah. And how it is named also, that is very important, and what are the do's and don'ts. So as I said, it's a placeholder to store data. And remember that unlike other programming languages, there is no special way to define a variable other than like other programming languages. They have special ways and code to define the variables. Here nothing like that. Here we define functions, but for variables we just assign some values and there you go, your variable is ready. Like if I say x equal to 2, your variable is already x. If I say name equal to Tom Hanks, your name is your variable. So it's like quite cool and it's very easy to create your variable in Python. So that means there is no specific way to define a variable. You just assign a value to it and there you go, your variable is created. That's the idea. And then our variable can store, what all can it store? It can store integer, it can store strings, it can store list, and so on and so forth. But mainly these things. So even it can store decimal numbers. Yeah. So another important thing is any given point of time, you can even reassign value to the same variable and you can override the previous value. Like for example, if the first value that I give to a variable x is a number 7, then if I give another value, second time when the function is running, if I give a value of 10, then the value of 10 will override the value of 7 that was assigned earlier. So this is a very important point that you should remember, that for Python variables, you can reassign values to override previous value. That's very important. Yeah. And how do you write a variable? Like for writing a variable also there are quite a number of rules, for creating a variable rather. Like for example, it shouldn't start with a number, it should start with an alphabetical, either with an underscore, that's the only thing allowed among characters, or like alphabets, like A to Z, any alphabets it can start, capital or small. Or it can also start with underscore. But remember, underscore is the character which is used to separate words. Let's say if there are 2 or 3 words in Python variable, but you cannot start it with hyphen, or you cannot have hyphen in between. That's a very important rule. Then you should also not use reserved words for creating a variable. There are some reserved words like class and lots of words like that. We will go over that later. So you're not supposed to use that. Yeah. Basically, it should be something which is descriptive. It should be a descriptive name that will actually reflect its purpose. Like for example, when I say count basket, so I know this is actually used for counting the basket. For example, if I say sum total, so I know it's actually for calculating, it's a sum of all the totals. You know what I mean? So basically it should be something which will be descriptive, or rather describe and suggest what purpose it's going to serve. Yeah. And then do not use too much of abbreviations. Abbreviation to a certain extent, but not which should sound nonsense. Like instead of count, you cannot make it so short like CNT. You know what I mean? Those kind of things. And instead of total, you cannot say TTL. That sounds very absurd. So it should sound its purpose. It should not sound absurd. Yeah, that's the whole idea of creating variables, to make code reusable, to make the code look nice, to not only for reusability of the code, but also to make your programming project, more helpful, more user-friendly. So that's the idea. So here I've just given an example of name. So name, Meera Menon as a string. You can print the name, you'll get the output as the name, Meera Menon. Number, I just assign it a number, 77, and lo and behold, number is my variable. So like that. You can also call it num, but not shorter than that, but because num is a very popular variable, so you can also use num. But instead of count, you cannot say CT. That's not popular and it's very absurd. You know what I mean? So this is how we are just testing out, how you can create the variable and then use the print function to print it out. Okay. So that's quite simple. So basically, you can initialize a variable by just assigning it a value. That's as simple as that. Yeah? It's rather like declaring it already, So there's no specific code to explicitly declare a variable. You just assign it a value and lo and behold, you already declared it, and whatever first value that you give, the first value that you give will be treated as your initial value or initialization of the variable. And then here I'm just going through different examples like name, age, width. You can use it for different calculations like for addition, for subtraction, for multiplication, for finding the power of a number, for finding remainders of number, and things like that. A lot of mathematical problems can be solved. A lot of apps can be created. So it's really very useful for Python development. Variables are very useful. So here we did a width, assigned it a value of a decimal value, 75.55, and lo and behold, we just did print width and the output will be printed out. It will display the output, rather the value that we assigned to the variable width. Then give another example of assigning a list to a variable. Like let's say we have a variable called vegetables. Then you have like a list. This is like a list. If we've done this earlier with you, you can refer to my tutorial on list. So carrot, potato, tomato. So these values, this is the list values, and I initialize the variable called vegetables with this value, and I have already declared a variable called vegetables with these values, with this list values. So you can do integers, decimals, list, tuples, and so on and so forth, like mainly this, and the string of course. You can also assign values of sets, tuples and dictionaries. But here I am just giving you an example of the list. And then after this, when you print the vegetable, the list will be printed out, will be displayed on the computer screen. So there you go. After printing that, you have the list in the output. that the list that we assign to the vegetables variable can be printed out in the output. We can already see the list. So this is a very simple concept for variables. It's very easy to understand. And then, as I already mentioned, we are just going through the uses of variables. As I said, first use will be, the main use will be to store data, to store values. And then it's also important that once you store the data in the program, when you want to run the program again or make some changes in the program and run it again, or even without making program you want to run it later, you can access this data later. You can access this data or the stored value later. So that's the beautiful usability of variables. You know, like you already stored it, after 2 weeks you come back, you can approach it, you can use it for your program. So that's very beautiful, right? And then you can also label the data. Like here you are labeling it very descriptively. You actually know, like this stands for the name of so and so. You know, it's like, it's actually tantamount to storing something in a box and then labeling it, you know, like the way you do in warehouse. And then warehouse and factories, and the way you can use it, you know, you can access it anytime. So this kind of accessibility in a code is very important, and this is because of the usage of variables. And this also helps us to improve the code, you know, and makes your code so readable, you know, like I say, we are using like terms, names for the variable which we can understand, which will specify what task it's going to perform, you know. It's reflective of the task that it's going to perform, that the function, or sorry, the variable is going, like for example, count numbers. So, you know, it's going to count numbers, for example, or my age. So it shows it's going to be my age. It's a variable which is going to show you age values, for example. So it's going to show you the purpose. And by doing this, it's going to assist the programmer or the developer in different tasks that is to be carried out in the project. So that means it is storing the data, it can be accessed later, it's making the code reusable, then it also makes the code readable, it makes the code efficient, you know, it even increases the speed of the code, because every time you are reusing it, re-accessing it, you know, and then it's also so descriptive. So it's making your code efficient and increases the speed of your code also, because you can get the task done efficiently and smoothly. Just because I'm doing the concept tutorials for the last few weeks and for the next couple of weeks, that doesn't mean that I forgot to do projects with you, just to let you know. So for those who are looking out for projects in Python, yes, please stay tuned patiently. After covering these major principles and concepts in Python for beginners, the beginner concepts, I will be resuming the projects again. I'm just doing this so that it becomes life becomes a bit more easier when you're doing the projects after getting these foundational concepts stronger. So here, like naming of variables, which I've already covered with you at the beginning of this tutorial. So I'm just showing it. The reason I'm showing it written here, mind you, maybe I'm going faster than what's being typed here. The reason being, this, if you save this video, later on, when you get confused and forget what I have said, this serves like a record for you, and you can not only like listen to what I'm saying, you can also see what's being typed here in the comment. And remember, commenting is very important for programmers. It's not only for you to recollect what you've done, it's also for you to check what others have done. Like in this case, I am recording something, the tutorial, and in my comments later on you can come back to it and check out the comment section, so you will get you will remember and retain it. So that's the idea. Yeah. So here, like I say, the naming of the variables, it can be it can be alphanumeric or just alphabetic only, but you can avoid too many numerical numbers in your variables. It's always better. Yeah, and you cannot start, like I say, you cannot start a variable with a number. Like imagine starting a number with 741 name. Can you do that? No. So it's always better. Like in my case, I most of the time avoid numbers unless there's a reason. For example, if I am adding three numbers, I would say number 1 plus number 2 plus number 3, or I say num 1 plus num 2 plus num 3. So here, of course, the number cannot be preceding the alphabets, but alphabets followed by the number, like num 1. But again, even in that case, I'm using the 1, 2, 3 because it shows first number, second number, third number. So in that order. So whenever it's essential and necessary, then you use the numbers for naming the variables, and of course followed by the alphabets not preceding it. Cannot start with a number, like it cannot be 1 number plus 2 number plus 3 number. It should be number 1 plus number 2 plus number 3 in that order. Again, like I say, I do not like to use too many numbers in my variables, and it's always better that you avoid. Stick to characters, like alphabets. And better to avoid, you are just not allowed to use special characters like the one I've shown here, and any special characters like asterisk and comma and apostrophe and stuff like that. Obviously, you can understand it doesn't look nice. The idea of variable is to beautify your code, not to make it look horrendous. Yeah, and like sometimes you have just one word in a variable, sometimes you have two, sometimes more than two, but it's preferable to have not more than 2 or 3. Do not have too many words, and when you're having words, you cannot have it hanging separately. You have to join the 2 or 3 words, and you cannot do that by hyphenated. You have to join them by underscore. Always remember that. You can start a variable with an underscore, but even I do not like that. But underscore is allowed, but for joining also and for starting also. Hyphen is not allowed. Yeah. Okay, so what else cannot see? Let me see all the rules. So I purposely wrote this down while recording the video so that you can always come back to it later, like I say. And even I could come back to it. Sometimes when we forget the rules and we make mistakes. Okay, so as I've mentioned, can start with an underscore, and please ignore the spelling mistakes if any. Yeah, I was doing it in quite a bit of rush today. And my Wi-Fi was also very weak. So I had to literally fight with my Wi-Fi in order to do this. And as usual, I'm using the Replit code editor. I also use some other code editors, but I will be doing those lessons on how to download and use those editors at a later stage. Because you are beginners, I would suggest that you do not get confused with using complicated code editors. Even I'll be teaching you how to use the terminal. I use the terminal, but I thought at a later stage is better, because even I myself went and did all that after grasping the code. So it's always better to get command of the code, especially the main concepts in your beginning stage, and after that get a grasp of the terminal, GitHub and all that. Yeah. And the code editor also. So here, just stick to the simple code editor, which is your Replit. You have the free edition. You can do lots and lots of projects and code there. So I suggest it's better. All you need is an email address, and with the email address, you can start a free account. You don't even need to pay for the Replit free account. As a beginner, you can do more than hundreds of projects and all these practice sessions and all that. Yeah, when I started off, I used Replit for Python, and for other languages, I used the CodePen. Later on, I started using the other code editors. But I still love Replit. It's so easy and so cool. When you're in a rush to get your codes out, it's very simple to ship out. See here, why I'm showing you deliberately a wrong type of naming. Instead of name1 or name, I could have used name1, but I used purposely one name. Starting with a number is not allowed. When you print it out, it will give you a bug. It will give you an error. So just doing that purposely. And also, another thing is, like your variables cannot have keywords. Like if, else and all that. If, elif, else, those are keywords, right? You cannot have that. Then it's also case sensitive. Because like, for example, if I write an alphabetical name, another variable I create with a small letter name, they are treated as separate variables. We might think, oh, it's just a case. No, but they're different. A name variable written just name, and another one written with, started with capital case, it's different, treated as different. So print one name, see this is, it will show an error, so I am just writing it purposely here for your records to say this is a wrong way of naming a variable starting with a number or a digit. So just to keep for your record purpose. After this, I'll be also doing functions and 3 or 4 other concepts, and then I'm done. After that, I will continue with the projects that I had left midway, more projects. I have at least minimum 10 projects more for the beginners, and then more concepts, and then again more projects. So I'll be doing that way. You see, whatever projects I have to do, before that I'll do the concepts, and then I'll do the projects, and then again I'll come back to the concepts for the more tougher projects, and then go back to doing the concepts, and then go back to doing the project. So this way it'll be easier for you. So I'm not going anywhere. So if you don't see projects for a couple of weeks, doesn't mean I've stopped doing projects, so be patient. And remember, even if you want to do the projects, I know for project-based learning is good. Even for that, these basic concepts, you have to get it right. Otherwise, we might make mistakes in our project. It's very easy to do projects if you can get these most essential concepts only I'll be teaching. I'm not going into too many concepts. I will be only doing those concepts which are absolutely essential for you to do projects as a beginner. Those less significant ones, I will leave off for now. So here, for example, I cannot do a variable called if, because that's a reserved word, right? We use it for the if, elif, or if else loop condition. So we cannot create a variable with the name if. It's a reserved word in Python, only reserved for those loops. You cannot use it for creating variables. Then another one, my age, it's hyphenated. I'm just showing you wrong examples to avoid this. So sorry, I cannot have a my hyphenated age as a variable. It has to be either just my age together, or if I don't want a space, I just write my age, or I can say my better, but then it won't make sense. So in order to make sense, I should have a separation. So I say my and then underscore age. So that's a better way of writing. Or you just say age. If you want to avoid complications, want to make it very simple, just write age. So that's the way it goes. So these are just simple examples. Like I say, absolutely foundational knowledge that every beginner in Python must know. Now, for some of you, I know you must be already knowing this, but even if you know, it's not bad to go through it again, because it's like your revision. But if you still feel that you don't need to revise and you already know everything about it, do mention it in the comments so that I know that I'm not repeating myself too much. Like, I must know my target students, like, if I don't need to do these concepts, then maybe I don't need to do. So let me know if you found this useful, because unless I know that if you found this useful, I won't be able to go ahead and plan my lessons. If you found this useful, I will do a couple of more important concepts in Python before doing more projects. But if you comment that you don't find it useful, you know it all, then I will try to avoid the concepts. I'll just straight away do the project. So please bear with me, and please be kind and let me know in the comments below, because I'm not one of those expert Pythonistas. I'm just an intermediate level Python programmer. I'm a teacher actually. I'm just maybe one level above you. I'm not one of those number one experts. So, but that's an advantage for you because I'll be teaching you from a learner's perspective. I remember I used to attend a lot of classes where experts leave out things and then we beginners like, oh my God, why he didn't explain this? But I want to hold your hands and teach you so that I don't leave out anything. And if I leave out anything, you have every right to comment. Miss, you left out this one. Can you explain again in your next tutorial? Things like that. Or if there's any other concept which you want to know and which you want me to cover in your next tutorial, please do mention in the comments. Yeah, below. So here, like I say, one number you cannot write, but num1 you can write it as a variable. I just assign it a value. There you go, 7, num2, 3, 10, whatever. There you go. I created two variables. Num1 is my one variable, num2 is my second variable. I assign it values I already have. Then I create another variable called total. And how do I relate these two? By saying total equals num1 plus num2. So that's another variable that I created for addition of num1 and num2. And then I just say print total. As simple as that. So cool, like Python. It's more like English like. Very easy to create variables. You don't have like complicated syntaxes like in other languages. That's why I love Python for its simplicity. There you go, it's already added and it's showing you the added result. Yeah. So printed total already. It's done. Now then I assign some other values, 2750, and I'm trying to total it. There you go. Wow, it's already showing 77. So this is how, and it's, remember, it's not just addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, remainders, finding this, so many things to the power of whatever. I mean, a whole lot of mathematical operations and other tasks it can do. So variables is a huge thing, you know. It assists in lots and lots of operations rather, but mainly the mathematical operations. It's very helpful for doing your mathematical operations, aside from doing other operations. Yeah? So the reason I'm commenting out after doing every example is so that the output of various examples doesn't interfere with each other. When you comment it out, the output of that particular one will not be shown. That's the idea. Now here, after this we are going to cover, so we learned how to name variables, how to create, how to initialize, how to use, what all purpose it serves now, what are the different types of variables. One is the local variable and one is a global, another one is a global. Please ignore the spelling mistake, it's local and global. Now this is based on the scope, where it is positioned, the variable, meaning not just position, where it can be accessed rather. Whether it can be accessed locally or whether it can be, the variable can be accessed globally. So based on that, you have two types of variables, local and global. Local, which can be accessed only locally within the function. Global, which can be also accessed externally outside of the function. Now, of course, from the name itself, global, we know that. It means that it's quite easy to remember. Yeah, and then I'll be showing different examples to support this concept, and then you will get to know, okay, what it actually means. With some examples, supporting examples. And for those who are already staying subscribed, thanks a lot for supporting me and for staying subscribed in your Python journey. For those who are not yet subscribed, please do remember to smash that subscribe button and the bell button so that you get to know immediately once I post my tutorial. And I'll be doing lots of them. And remember also to check out my Substack link where I also write my documentation. I will be including the link below in the description. Not all of the documentation, but some of the project's documentation will be there. And you can also check out my GitHub link. Yeah. So in my next tutorial, I'll be doing something interesting in the concepts. Most probably the functions. Yeah. So here you have. Okay, so here I'm just showing you the example of creating a function sum, which is with the keyword def sum AB, the two parameters, and then use a formula for adding it, and then I print it out. Yeah. So here what is happening? This is an example of showing you the different scopes. So I'll be continuing, like I say, this concept along with maybe 4 or 5 concepts more, which are important ones left for me to do projects. After that, I will start the projects. And meanwhile, also remember to check out the community post section, where I'll be posting what I'm going to do next. So that was the example of local, where it can be accessed. Then I'll be giving example of global. I'll be also giving more examples. So let's continue. Let's see the global variable example here. I'll be giving a simple example here to support the concept of global variable. Okay, so we have understood what are variables, how it is created, how it is initialized, how to name it, and what are the do's and don'ts in naming it, etc. And we've seen some examples, and we've also seen the types of variables, that is the global scope and the local scope. There are 2 types based on the examples that I had given earlier. So let's consider a variable to decide the scope. So here we have a function which is defined as my function. This does not have any parameters. We are just doing this to cite the example of the variables as a local or global variable. So we are just considering a variable by the name of variable, and then we are assigning it a value of anything. It could be like, we can call it hello world, we can give it a welcome message, we can give it, like in this case, this is to decide local or global. So here I say this is a local variable. Just assign a value like that. Yeah. Okay. Then after that, we just give instructions to the computer to print the variable. This is just to do, just to see the output when you're doing when you're giving the printing instructions in a function to a local variable. Because why is this a local variable? Because as you can see, the location of the variable, this is right inside the function, and it's accessible also inside the function. We are giving the printing instruction also inside the same code block. Yeah. So it is accessible. So this is called a local variable. Okay. Let's do something more with the function. So here what I am doing, my function, by doing this, what am I doing? I am calling the function. Remember, for calling the function or for executing it, we call it by writing the name of the function. So this says this is local variable. So this is clear enough why it's local variable. I'm trying to access it inside the function, and it's possible. So that is a local variable. Now let's give some other examples. Okay, now within the function, when I try to do the instruction of printing the variable, it obeyed the function and it gave me the outcome of local variable. So it is proving that it's a local variable. Now here what I do, I use the print command outside the code block, meaning outside the function, in other words. Now let's see what's happening. Error message, variable is not defined. Now I want to know, this is just to show you the learning formula, learning path. Okay, now maybe it's because of the spelling mistake, so let's get the spelling corrected. As you can see, the variable spelling, name is mentioned inappropriately. It's not correct, in other words, a spelling mistake, typo mistake. Okay, name variable is not defined. Did you mean, okay, so why? This is because I try to access it from outside the function. Because remember, we exited the function and then called, given the print instruction. That means I'm trying to access it. So if you access it, in the previous case, when I accessed it inside the same code block, or rather inside the function, it was possible. So local variable, remember, so the definition of local variable is local variable exists inside the function and it can only be accessed from within the function. It cannot be accessed from outside the function. So that is just to give you the idea of local variable, what is local variable, how it can be called, how it can be accessed, and how it cannot be accessed. That was the idea of showing this example. So this was all about local variable. It's wrong since local variable cannot be accessed outside the function. Because now again I do the correction. I give the print instruction to print out the variable from within the function. There you go. It's showing me the output. So now you have a very clear idea. So we have understood with an example what are local variables, how it can be accessed, how it cannot be accessed. So that part. So now we have to know about global. We finished the local variable. Now let's check out global variable. It's just the reverse of local variables. Global variables can be accessed from outside the function. That is the difference. So let's check it out with an example. But before that, I just want to comment out the previous code so that the output doesn't interfere. Two outputs doesn't clash with each other before creating a new function. Always remember that in your code editor. Either you can modify that or you comment it out. If you comment it out, the advantage is you can come back to it at a later stage. So that's why we do this. Okay, so I'll be including this code in the GitHub source code repository, so you can use it as a source code in case you get stuck or something. Yeah, and then you can always refer back to this video because this will always have the comments also retained in it. So that's the beauty of it. So here let's consider a global variable. For this, outside my function, I'm creating a variable called x and I'm assigning it a value of global variable. You can do whatever, but in this example, it's going to do the task of proving that it's a global variable. So I assign it a string, global variable, call it x. And if you can see here, it's the position or location is right outside the function, right? Just before the function is created. Then after that, I create the function again, define my function. Okay, then I want to print out. I want to access this from inside the function. I want to access this global variable from inside the function. For that, what do? I write print some statement. This variable is global, or whatever you want to say. You want to write something here. So this variable is string, comma, the variable which is x. That's how you print out, right? One of the ways of printing out. And then I just call the function for executing the function. My function. Let's see what happens. Let's run the function. Something wrong with it. Let's check it out. Some spelling mistake or some... Okay, the previous code is interfering, maybe. Let's see. Is there a typo mistake? Okay, there was a symbol on the my. Have to be very careful of typo and cases, because variables in Python are very sensitive, and functions also. So in this case, my function, so I did the spelling correction. So after calling it, let's run it again. Oh, some Wi-Fi problem, so sorry about that. As mentioned earlier, I'll be doing more such important essential functions, after which lots of projects involving not only Python but Python and JavaScript. Okay, sorry, I got disconnected. I'm using a Replit code editor and I got a problem here because my Wi-Fi got disconnected. These are things you need to face when you're coding in Python or any code language for that matter. Yeah, this variable is global variable. So now it's possible. So the advantage of using global variable is you can access it from anywhere. You can access from outside the function. You can also access the global variable from inside the function like you saw here. So now I hope you understood what is a global variable and the difference between the global and the local. Local variable you can only accept within the function. Global you can access from within the function and also from outside the function, as you've seen in this example. So to conclude, we've learned all about variables, how it is created, how it is initialized, what is the importance of variables, how it prettifies code, how it maintains code, how it makes code reusable and allows execution of tasks more smooth and efficient. What are the different types of variables, like the global variables and the local variables? What are the differences between them? Yeah. And how variables have to be described, what terms like keywords and special reserve words are not supposed to be used in the naming of the variables, and how it has to be named such that it can signify the task that it is supposed to do and things like that. See you in the next with more important concepts. Until then, stay subscribed.